Welcome, everyone. I'm One of My Stories. This is Lindsay Dunn, and today I wanted to do a brief video about Something in the Dirt. This is a movie that is in theaters right now. I saw it back in Sundance of 2022, and it made a big splash. I believe it also was at South by Southwest, and it made another big splash there, and people have just fallen in love with this movie. And so I wanted to get on to do a review about it. This is directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. They are a true blue partnership and they work together. You may know them from movies like The Endless, Synchronic, After Midnight. They've also worked on TV projects such as Archive 81. They did an episode for that. They directed about half of the episodes of Moon Knight, and they are slated to be working on Loki. But the two of them made this movie during the COVID pandemic on a slim crew of, I believe, 3 people on set. And so they were able to do a lot with this very minimalistic cast, crew, setting, and it's amazing what they did with it. To briefly cover the plot, this is a story about 2 lovable losers who they their lives become intrinsically linked when both of them meet in this sort of, weird apartment building. John has lived there for over a decade. He was living there with his ex-husband, and now they're separated. And Levi is just there temporarily. So they meet outside in the patio and bond over a shared cigarette break. And it turns out that Levi has no furniture. John happens to have some extra furniture and offers to loan it to him and move it into his apartment. While they're doing this, their good-natured banter comes to a halt when a glass globe that Levi was using as an ashtray begins floating in the air mysteriously. And they're trying to figure out what it is. Is it a ghost? Is it gravity? Is it geological anomalies? What is causing this floating thing to happen? And they decide to make a movie about it. And so, then after that, they start to spend a lot of time together. So the movie is about these 2 guys that decide to make this movie. What's interesting is they are trying to solve this mystery of what causes these floaty things to happen and other weird things that happen in the apartment. As time goes along, there are other anomalies that happen with noises and sounds and lights and different visual things. And so they are trying to discover these things, but at the same time, they're also creating a friendship / relationship. And if you think about friendship, one of the things that's interesting about it is when you form a new friend, it's a lot like a new romance. There's no sexuality, but you are sort of falling in love with that person. You spend time with them, you share stories, you create a world between the 2 of you. And as we are exploring the world of this apartment, we are also exploring this new relationship between them and how that fosters and plays out. And just like when you're a kid, this stuff doesn't happen. You meet somebody, there's innocence, you take them in, there's sort of a given trust. But as you get older, you grow cynical and you've had your heart broken at least a couple times. And your boundaries are up. And so these 2 men, as they're doing this and as they're getting to know each other and spending more time together, their walls are both up to an extent. So something will happen and they'll notice, oh, I noticed this, and they'll feel weird about it and kind of take a step back from that person. And then later on, they'll ask them about it. And there's a perfectly logical explanation. but it's not clear how much they're trusting each other. And so that's an interesting dynamic that plays out. The mystery of what happening in the apartment, of course, is super compelling because we all want to know too. It becomes sort of an X-Files or, Sci-Fi Channel special or any kind of weird puzzle box sort of thing. And the movie has a lot of layers. That's one of the things that makes this movie so great. There's actually the whole movie is a puzzle because you start with the two guys and their meeting, then they start making the movie. And then as they are making the movie, you actually get to see some of the movie as well. So you have the world of them and in their reality of meeting. Then you have the world of the movie itself. And it turns out that what you're watching may not be an actual thing that happened. It might be a recreation. So you have the movie they're making, you have the actual meeting, you have the world that they're creating between the two of themselves as they're getting to know each other. They share stories or interesting things they heard from the news or from culture or from history. And as they will describe those events, those things play out on screen. So, for instance, if they're sharing a story about a mysterious frog and what it does with its prey, the camera cuts to a picture of that frog doing something as they're talking. And I love that aspect because that's kind of what happens as you get to know somebody, you share stories and you sort of create a world between the two of you. And then there are other characters that come into the show that are sort of talking about what's happening. So you're getting taking a step back from the actual place become them, and there's these talking heads that interrupt the story and sort of describe things. And so the movie is a hybrid in many ways of a sci-fi, then there's the movie itself, there's the mockumentary that becomes the making of the movie, and just layers upon layers upon layers. And so you have to start questioning reality the whole time. But the thing that really keeps this together, as good as the mystery is, as good as the plot is, the chemistry between Benson and Moorhead is a sight to see. They just play off each other so well. And a lot of times when you have these mysterious happenings, you don't really get too much into character profiles, but there are particular scenes in here that will just take your breath away with how good these guys are in front of a camera. Not all directors can pull that off. Sometimes there are certain people that they can be good directors and writers, but if they're in front of the camera themselves, it doesn't work. But these two guys know how to make it work. And what is happening between the two of them is really the most interesting thing about the movie, because we see ourselves in them. We see the way they form this connection and also the way that they are trying to find purpose in life in a very tumultuous time. Remember, this is filmed during the COVID pandemic, and so there's people's feelings of isolation and not being able to do things. It's not clear that I don't believe it's ever stated in the movie that we are in the middle of a pandemic, but there does seem to be something going on in the background because there's all these planes that are flying overhead, and there don't seem to be that many people around, which really works well for a COVID type picture. Because we all felt that sense of isolation. And we've seen these movies before. There's been a lot of movies that came out that were sort of these COVID movies that played on themes of isolation and, not knowing know what to do and feeling a sense of purposelessness. And Levi and John are very much in that camp. They both are life hasn't turned out exactly how either one would them would like, leaving them looking for a purpose. And they both feel like somehow I was made for this moment. And it becomes such a part of their life from then on out. And it becomes a part of our life too as we explore this through them. So I highly recommend this movie. If you love science fiction, if you love X-Files, if you love compelling character dynamics, you are going to love this movie. If you like these two directors in general, you're going to love it. If you like weird fiction, experimental fiction, it's very outside the box. It's like nothing that you have really seen before. You really can't compare it to anything that I've seen in the last decade or so, but definitely check it out. It just might be your thing. If you're bored of the same old, it is a very unique picture. So please check it out in theaters or streaming as it comes up. And keep an eye on these directors because they are doing great things. Follow them on social media, however you can, and just keep an eye on what they're doing. I just saw Mike Flanagan introduced their movie at a Q&A and led the Q&A, so obviously he's a fan. And I think that these two are going to continue climbing the ladder of success and doing things their way. They've carved out a place for themselves in the cinematic scape, and I love that. So I encourage you to check out this movie, and that's it for one of my stories. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.